afternoon and welcome back to the second session of the Agroecology track, Strengthening Agroecological Systems in India. The session will discuss and deliberate on the views of private players, research agencies, implementation agencies, networking agencies, and FPOs with regard to the implementation, marketing, research, certification of agroecology-centric produce in India beyond others. And it is my pleasure to welcome the esteemed panelists for this session. We have Mr. Prabhakar L., Executive Vice President, Social Investments at ITC. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Krishna Prasad, Director at Sahaja Group. And finally, we also have with us Mr. Ravindra A., Advisor to the National Coalition for Natural Farming. To share the discussion, we have Dr. Ralph Peveling, who will be moderating this discussion. It's over to you, Dr. Ralph, and the screen is all yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. So good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you on the Livelihood Summit. I feel quite honored actually to be part of it, and I want to share with you some information about myself. I'm Ralph Peveling. I'm a biologist, and I'm working with the GIZ Sector Department, Division Climate Change, Rural Development and Infrastructure. And the reason why I'm here today is actually because I was involved in the design of one of the first true agroecology projects of German Development Corporation in India. That is the Swati project that is actually hosting this session. And actually this year, another seedling of the agroecology family has emerged in India, which is called One Health and Agroecology. So I did have some exposure from last year to this year with regard to the agroecology temptation in India and in Germany, if you allow me to say that. And I still think it is a very exciting topic, and also a very exciting perspective, not only for India but also for Germany, and I think also for the world as such. Well, the panelists have already been presented. The panel has lost some of the early candidates, but I think we have had already some exposure with regard to the Indian Research Council. So we heard something about it in the policy discussion, and I also kind of transferred some of the questions, some of the issues that I wanted to raise with them into this panel. And well, the outline of the panel discussion, before I actually ask you to give a brief presentation of yourselves, I would like to familiarize you with an etiquette. So you will normally have about 3 minutes, for statements, and so try to be short and concise, so that we can rather ask more questions or raise more issues than extending a lot of time on single issues. And sorry for that, I have to stop this. Yeah. Well, first of all, as the introduction of the panelists was really short, I would like to ask you to briefly present yourself, and then I will kind of tease on into this panel discussion. And maybe we can start with Ravindra Adusumilli. Would you please shortly present yourself?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ralph. I'm Ravindra. I work with Vasan, and I'm part of the National Coalition of Natural Farming and Revitalizing the Agriculture Network. Dr. Ralph, shall we go ahead with the presentation or just the introduction?
No, just send over, so maybe we can go over to
okay,
Prabhakar.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ralph. I am Prabhakar. I am part of the social investments team of ITC. I moved into this role about 6 months back. Otherwise, I've been an HR professional for 33 years. Of the 33 years, almost about 20 years is in the agribusinesses of ITC, and look forward to an engaging session.
Thank you very much. And finally, we hand over to Krishna.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Ralph. I am Krishna Prasad, founder of Sahaja Samruddha. Sahaja Samruddha is an organic farmers association of Karnataka. We closely work with the small and marginal farmer, mainly the revival of the traditional varieties and then utilization and marketing, mainly linking our seed savers to the market. So we formed Sahaja Samruddha Organic Producer Company Limited to market the traditional crops. And also we have one more producer company called Desi Seed Producer Company Limited under the Sahaja Seeds brand name. This is India's first farmer-owned organic seed company. This is all about me.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, well, I mean, I just would start with referring you back to the title. I mean, we're talking about the agroecological transition in India. Wow, I mean, there's a lot of ambition in it, and we heard it in the previous discussion, and also I think in the introductory remarks, a lot of ambition. And then the second edition, there's a subtitle: Healthy Food for All. So health and enough food for all. And then there's another subtitle which reads People, Environment and Climate. And so I mean, and each of the subtitle actually kind of indicates, you know, the enormous ambition that comes with the promise of agroecology as a driver or as a model for the change of agri-food systems. I mean, just having that in mind, of course, we have to take a step down again and see, okay, how actually does it translate into the world of practitioners and into the world of those who are actually dealing with a sustainable agriculture in India, like you're doing. And I would like to open the discussion with some kind of tailor-made questions. And first of all, I would address Ravindra. And I'm referring actually to the National Coalition for Natural Farming. And I did visit your homepage, the homepage, of course, and I noticed it was founded in only last year, so it's pretty new. And the coalition seems to have a very, very clear focus on agroecology. And with the audience, I want to state, I want to share a citation from your mission statement, which reads, "We understand natural farming as a direction and process of transition towards a more local, resilient, and adaptive agroecology-based farming." So that is how it reads. So my first question to you would then be, why has the coalition been formed at all? I mean, considering that there are so many coalitions already that you could probably rather transform, you know, to follow another track. And who is part of it? I mean, that would be the first part of my question. Over to you, please, Ravindra.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Ralph. The coalition is primarily of various people who are quickly involved in various forms of agroecology. So the principle that we have taken on board is let 100 flowers bloom is the kind of narrative that we are looking at. When you look at agroecology, I mean, there has been several forms of it in various dimensions. So you have permaculture, you have non-pesticide management of pests, and you have LBNF. So there are several forms of it. So, but the discourse that started on natural farming and then taken to scale in Andhra actually laid out some basic premises and then shown ways of scaling it up by making some certain departures. So the coalition is basically looking at this as an opportune moment where there is an emerging political consensus on the need to shift away from the current paradigm to a new paradigm. So the first and foremost thing is to construct what is the new paradigm. So it should not get lost into lots of nomenclature, and it should not get into this thing about whether one form of agriculture is better than another form. one form of natural waste, natural management is better than another. Whether, I mean, there are lots of names, organic agriculture, natural farming and all that. So we need to actually synthesize and synchronize these various elements, various practices that are spread across the country into one direction, which is broadly the natural farming, and then agroecology principles are now laid out clearly by FAO, and then several things are emerging. And we see the need to bring this discourse across farmers, and then the researchers, the economic institutions, and then the policymakers. So it is important to bring this discourse into the tables, and then bring consensus around that, and everybody should work towards making it happen, rather than actually being a bystander, making a comment on it. So this synthesis is what we are aiming at. The primary motive is driver. We see it as the champion farmers. Whether we can build some 5 million champion farmers practicing natural farming and be part of the economy and driving it. So everything, whether policy changes are required for that, research systems need to realign for this new emerging requirements, and then say banking systems need to relook at it. So this is a platform that brings all these things together. So this is the primary motive behind the National Coalition of Natural Farming. It is formed by several organizations and individuals across the country who are championing the cause. So it's a coalition. Basically, there are over 600 people as members of it from various disciplines. Around 200 organizations participating in it in a regular basis on several discussions and all that. So together, how we learn from each other, standardize the methodologies, location specificity, specific methodologies and all that, and evolve this knowledge. This is the basic work that the coalition is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, well, what I concluded is that over the last year, a lot has happened with regard to agroecology in India, and that basically the concept explicitly is being embraced by a lot of stakeholders in India, and it would have been different 1 or 1.5 years ago. Also, community managed natural farming now very explicitly, I think, refers to agroecology as a kind of orienting or guiding concept, and that is an interesting development. Would you confirm that? I mean, that kind of, it's kind of picking up pace or building up momentum in India much more over the last 1.5 years than before.
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, today's Prime Minister's narrative on natural farming and an announcement itself is a directional thing. I mean, there's a lot of work that went behind last 2 years for the Prime Minister to take cognizance and then make it a national agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so far. By the way, I have a little hearing problem with your mic. I don't know. There's a little noise in it, so you're not so well audible. But I think by and large, it's kind of, it works out, but it's not very comfortable. Maybe it will improve during the discussion. I would now wish to shift to Prabhakar, and just for the audience also to fill you in a bit, as under ITC's corporate social responsibility policy, which was started in 2013, 2014, a wide range of CSR programs have been implemented, including programs on rural development, sustainable agriculture, and also climate resilience. Also, it is important to say that there is a clear poverty alleviation focus in your programs. And now, my first question to you would be, based on your experience from these programs and also from a specific corporate private sector perspective, how can produce from sustainable agriculture be made more affordable to a wider consumership without compromising smallholder income, because that is what you also wish to assure?
Thanks, Rolf. I think the key is if you really work backwards and if you have to sort of create the traction that is required to promote and expand whatever you may want to call it in terms of nature-based farming or agroecology, etc., is this whole aspect of connect to the market. That is where the pull would come from. So first, I think I would like to emphasize on the pull factor, and that is where the role of corporates like ITC, which is in the space of branded food segment, is creating a market. And the creating a market would have probably 2 or 3 vectors. The first vector would be especially in a country like India, there's a lot of unorganized players and unbranded players. Now, how do you sort of move the consumers up the hierarchy to move from unbranded to branded, unpackaged to packaged? So that's one element. Second element is also to create the pull, and that's what I would call it as a consumer franchise, pull co-created, manufactured in a sustainable and responsible manner, and hopefully reach a situation where the consumer would be willing to pay a premium. Because sometimes in the short term, when you have to drive some of this intervention, especially at the back end, there could be a short-term increase in cost. And if the consumer is willing to pay a premium, that sort of facilitates the whole activity. The third, as far as the pull factor, would working with other institutional players, other corporates, and cooperating with the competition to really increase the size of the basket of the consumer goods that we are talking of, which are dependent on agroecology, sustainable manufacturing, sustainable procurement, etc. So those will be from the pull side. As far as coming to the push side, the key really would be is where you work with the farmers, as was mentioned in the earlier sessions, is how do you convince a farmer that adopting these practices actually is beneficial for him, both in the short term as well as in the long term, which would essentially be driven by 2 aspects. One is the numerator aspect in terms of better yields, and the other is the denominator in terms of reduced costs. Now, when we are talking of the pull dimensions, this is where a different ecosystem comes in, where you really need to work with government bodies, agriculture research institutes, knowledge partners. And the interesting aspect for a country like India is there are many Indias within India. And the key is how do you sort of come across or co-create a solution, a customized solution for a specific crop, for a particular geography, because the nuances of geography are very, very varied. And the whole aspect of hand-holding the farmers in terms of this entire journey. When I say hand-holding, it's not just about telling what needs to be done, but also sort of being with them in the journey of how it is done, dealing with both intended and unintended consequences. And that is where the whole strategy of ITC has been is how do we make agriculture future ready? And same way we talk of on the other side is the responsible competitiveness. It is the amalgam of these two which would address the aspect that you mentioned. And I can elaborate on some of this probably in the subsequent questions, but I will just give a larger opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. And actually, I will continue with this kind of system and offer a follow-up question before we move on among panelists. And the follow-up question, because it fits quite nicely, would be, given that agroecology favors short supply chains and locally grown and marketed food, this is the closer relationship between consumers and producers. So would ITC, would you consider this as a feasible business strategy, and how can it be accomplished? And also with regard to the possible role of FPOs and FPCs that actually do kind of assure that production volume, recognizable volume, can be produced. Yeah. And so, how do you see that?
That actually is the way to sustain the entire initiative. So when we look at ITC view, and I'm sort of going on a larger value chain of the business, is your whole, so there is a market. So how do you sort of have the entire ecosystem closer to the consumer? That is where your supply chain costs come down, supply chains become more sustainable, etc. And one of our strategies, therefore, has been is how do you sort of spread the areas where a particular crop is grown? And it's possible that some areas do not lend themselves like that for what you really want or what the consumer wants. So our whole focus has been is producing the buy, a concept of producing the buy rather than buying the produce. Because when you just buy what has been produced, it cannot necessarily be aligned to your specific requirements. So how do you work with the farmers to ensure that they produce what is relevant to the market and what is relevant to the customer? It is in this strategy of producing the buy is where the role of the farmer community comes in. And farmer community, when I say it could take shape of different types. One could be FPOs, as you rightly mentioned. The second could be is farmer field schools. It could be agribusiness centers. Or even when you look at ITC, when we talk of water replenishment and water harvesting, we talk of water user groups, where we create a community of farmers who then take the ownership of how water is harvested and how water is used. So definitely, I would say the role of collective is extremely critical to ensure whatever interventions whoever is doing are sustained, get amplified in a very agile manner.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on to Krishna. And before giving you the word, I would like to refer you back a bit to the teaser text, and we made a promise there. Surely there are success stories to tell of systems combining traditional circular farming practices, etc. And they are to share here on the occasion of this session on this summit. And I think if we talk about Sahaya Samruddha, please apologize my pronunciation, we talk about a success story because that started, I mean, in 2010, organic farming with just a handful of farmers. And now I think the number stands at more than 2,000 farmers plus organic producer groups. Stemming from both, interestingly, conventional and natural farming systems, going into organic farming. And the products are marketed, as has already been mentioned, under an own brand name and platform, which is called Sahaya Organics, which is exactly doing what we just talked about, directly connecting consumers and producers and assuring actually a very close connectivity between the two. And so we want to learn more about this success story, but also about the lessons learned, of course. And now, based on your experience, which have been key drivers and also barriers to the conversion to organic farming that you experienced over the last decade?
Yeah, thanks. Look, the agroecology, organic farming, natural farming, you can call any method of alternative agriculture, in general, chemical-free agriculture. I think our experience is not very difficult to convince the farmers. I think 20 years back, the story was different. I think now social media, people are very well versed with the smartphones. They're eager. They will, production is not an issue. But what is the issue today? Seed, processing, procurement, and the markets. Look at with a great difficulty. Nowadays, producing something in the farm is very much difficult. We all know farming is kind of a sinking ship. With a great difficulty, farmers are producing. Once they produce, the marketing is very difficult. You must beg the buyers. And also, we don't know, the only thing is just the raw materials. And especially in Karnataka, even South India, more than a month, it was a continuous rain. Look at that. After the harvesting, we don't have a proper storage facility to the harvested grain. I think this is what we must create. I think this is what starts with a seed. Look at that. Once you what to grow, one is the quality seed is not available. In the organic farming, consumers are looking traditional crops. Okay, if farmers want something scented, aromatic rice, farmer easily he can produce. We can convince him. He can produce chemical-free traditional way. But when you go to the milling, processing, we don't have proper processing units. Then it will get contaminated with the conventional rice. The farmers dependent on the conventional modern rice mills. It's not suited to the organic produce. I think we don't have any medium scale mini rice mills. So this is just an example. This is what the millet movement in Karnataka failed because of the processing problem. Look, farmers produce the millets because consumers' demand was also there, but no processing units and people doesn't know how to process it. I think we must start with supply the quality seeds. Especially this is what lots of role on the NBPGR, National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. This is the time they must come back and give the seed material because farmers lost most of the unique varieties. That is what consumers are asking. Look, 30 years back, we were eating that rice. We were eating that millets. Can you supply it? This is what consumers demand. But we don't have that varieties, that crops today. I think this is what gene banks can play a major role to give back the farmers' varieties. And the second thing is the farmer level processing units. That is very much important. I think value addition also important. And then procurement. Look at the farmers. One is only thing is we never taught much about farmers market. In other countries, farmers markets are very successful thing. I think in India, it's like you just take it to the big mandis or somehow you give it to the local dalals. These are the only option left to the farmers. I think we don't have this strong farmers market. There are few exceptions. I think this is what something we must to plan the procurement from the doorstep and then take it to the consumers directly. And the third thing is the markets also. This is what farmers are looking, something assured market. Yeah, give it to me, leave it to me, I produce, but give me the right price. I think that assurance we need to give. And this is what Sahaja Samruddha and Sahaja Organics, we organized many fairs. It's like a roots and tubers mela, roots and tuber fair, red rice fair, or a millet fair, whatever, melas. Consumers showing interest. I think consumers are very, if you teach them properly, you just show them, they are willing. But only thing is what the supply chain, that is, I think, that is missing. We need to work from seed to the markets. And also the government must give lots of facility. Look at that, even producer companies are there, but not enough support to strengthen the producer companies. If you want to set up, look at the Sahaja Organics we are facing. It's more than a very big turnover wedding. We need a godowns, but it's not easy to build a godowns for or a warehouses or a cold storages. These are all very difficult. I think this is what farmers, whether it's an organic farming, natural farming, permaculture, whatever, farmers are willing to do. But we must give them an assurance markets and also whatever that facilities, that is important. So I want to share our successful experience. It's like we have a vegetable growers group, outskirt of Bangalore, is just 40 kilometers away from Bangalore. What we told farmers, we identified the green consumers. We told them, look, they are the genuine vegetable growers. What the vegetables you are eating in Bangalore, mainly leafy vegetables, it's all the heavy metals, all the chemicals are there. Why can't you use the organically grown vegetables? Consumers came forward. Then we fixed some minimum support price to the farmer. For example, tomatoes 20 rupees or a carrot 25 rupees. Even though tomato price goes at 1 rupee, farmer get minimum 20 rupees. If it goes to 50 rupees, 50 rupees plus the premium. So this is what last 7-8 years we are successfully procuring is like a like a milk dairy system that farmers are bringing, selling. They're all planning their own. Every day they send the 2 tempo load of organic vegetables to the markets. It's every month they make around 7 to 8 lakh turnover. I think this kind of models, it's like a bridging green consumers and the organic farmers. These models are needed. I think farmers also can do this with collective. I think that farmer cooperatives, farmer producer companies, or farmer collective, any form, I think we need to strengthen that also.
I think we have later on we have to dig a bit into this idea of green consumers, because there's quite a diversity in the consumership as well, right? I mean, the ones that are really attached to organic farming, and others who have probably who would do well with other kinds of quality standards. But listening to you, I got the impression or the reassurance kind of that really, I mean, there's complexity in the challenges as well. And in the previous session, we heard a lot about the basic problems that are input related, like pesticides and fertilizer, and also maintenance of soil health. But we also heard that eventually the challenges are at the market level, because if you have the produce there, you must find your market, and it should be kind of predictable also in a certain way. So I mean, the complexity that is inherent to agroecology is just reflected in what you just explained, because you also said, well, we do struggle a lot with the very, very farm-based problems like quality seed and quality organic inputs and storage and these things. So which is still kind of more on the production side and not so much on the marketing side. So we see really agroecology is a multi-layered thing, and you cannot stay idle with your farm problems. Still, even if they are still hampering your kind of farm business, and neglect the marketing aspect, because once you've settled the farm, the farm problems, you must be ready also to tackle the marketing problems. So there's complexity in that, and we come to that later on. Again, I suppose. Yeah, but still, and because you said the green consumer, okay, let's try to fathom a bit who is this consumer? I mean, and when you say the green consumer, is it the one really that goes organic? I mean, according to my knowledge, there's some 2% of Indian consumers, urban consumers at most, that would buy organic food, so also pay a premium for that, whereas 98% would not, and of course the majority also living in rural areas. So now talking about agroecology as a kind of another way of producing food, do you think that agroecology-based produce that is not organic, it's not certified organic, would find its market among consumerships, both in urban and peri-urban areas?
Yeah, Dr. Look, after the COVID pandemic, the consumer awareness level is high. Earlier, what we were thinking, just a creamy layer of the consumers, maybe only 2 or 3%, they were well versed with the organic, they were looking organic vegetables, organic grains. But in general, so now people are very about their health and also immunity, all those things, now even especially you see our Sahaja seeds, especially our turnover gone up like anything. People want to grow something in their backyards, on the terrace, wherever the place they have. So that awareness is there. And second thing is, it's like a grains. People have the memory, especially the rice or a millet, that recall their memories. Whenever you organize a red rice mela or a traditional rice mela, people, once they saw the variety, they say, oh, I was eating this when I was a child. I want to eat again. Is a general consumer. Only thing is, look at that what only 2-3 varieties, Basmati, Sona Masuri, are 2-3 varieties available in the market. They never seen the varieties. If we can make them aware, continuous supply, I think it's not difficult to create the demand. But as you said,
Okay. Hello? You're not audible anymore?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, vegetables, the green consumers, they are the a little bit elite consumers. They can pay little more because why? When you produce the vegetables in the chemical-free method, the cost of production is more. Especially the exotic varieties, production needs much care and input. So sometimes general consumers unable to pay that. So this is what we picked few green consumers, they can pay more. Even and also constantly, when the market price goes down also, they need to pay at higher price and save the farmer.
Mhm.
So this is what we feel it's consumers' responsibility also. I think we must create that kind of green consumers. Yes, we are for farmers. Look,
Mhm.
farmers are in a difficult situation. It's high rainfall, they lost the crop. Let's pay more. It's our responsibility. And overall, in the month, they pay little more because they pay for many luxurious items, but food they pay very little. I think this
Mhm.
is what collectively we need to design this kind of model. I think this is what farmers markets are the only option we can bring consumers and farmers together.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so we shed some light on the consumers and the different probably types of consumers that we have, and I think you need to be very knowledgeable about your consumership really in order not to get lost with marketing of your product. I would wish to continue with Ravindra and refer a bit back to the idea of agroecological transition. And just to make you aware, I mean, when you're talking about that transition, that differs in terms of starting points, pathways, partnerships, and even goals. So my hypothesis would be that many farmers may wish to transition towards more resilient and adaptive systems, farming systems, but not necessarily to full-fledged natural farming. And so how do you deal with that kind of variety of farmers? And for example, would NCNF also include or address such more conventionally minded farming systems to go along a good track, of the long transitional pathway without ending up in natural farming? So are you embracing these farmers, even though they are not 100% allies, but they may be kind of partial or temporary allies? To you.
Yes, Ralph. I mean, we see this as a directional transition. It is not no black and white or no here and there, but a directional thing. We have large number of, I mean, several organizations who are working on natural, non-pesticide management of insect pests. That's called NPM agriculture. They may still use some level of fertilizers, but they don't apply any pesticides. So that is not an issue, but the core problem is that in several cases, unless you stop, then the regenerative processes may not take up. It's not about whether the farmer is applying or not and taking a position on bracketing the farmer here and there. That's not the issue. Issue is, so if you simultaneously apply chemicals and whatever way, and then also do natural farming methods, then would the process of transition be enabling, or you are actually self-contradicting in terms of the biology? So that is more of an issue rather than actually, taking a position, an ideological position on chemicals, yes or no. So whether the chemical use hinder the process of building up of soil biology, or okay, in a small way it compensates for the yield if there are any yield losses and all that. So this is the primary issue. But recently, our experiences are showing that yield penalty of transition is not that much, or it is not there in several cases. Particularly, we work in rain-fed areas, and then we don't see. I mean, I'm not talking about high-intensive cotton cropping, but in the entire tribal areas, we work extensively in the tribal areas. In the dryland areas, if you just say whether you use or do not use chemicals, stop chemicals and cultivate, there will be yield penalty. But if you actually apply the principles in the totality, in terms of diversification of the farm, in terms of managing the insect pests and all that, all kind of principles you apply, the yield penalty is not there. So this kind of a mindset of shifting to organic will penalize you. We are not seeing that much in the areas that we are working, provided it is not just chemical use or organic. No, it's not that way, but it is embracing the agroecology principles in totality. So there we are finding consistently yield increases. So we don't see any reason in that areas to actually tell farmers that no, you can also use this, you can also use that. You only replace some chemicals with another chemicals. With bio inputs and all that. So this is an emerging thing that we are finding it very, very useful. But in principle, NCNF see the whole process as directional, and your starting point may be somewhere, but you must be committed to the principles.
Okay.
So that is a kind of sort of positioning that the coalition is taking in.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I understand well, so if you're now reflecting on and playing with, the 13 principles, there are certain principles that are kind of hard principles, right? And they are kind of must. Agroecology wouldn't work out if you would not significantly reduce, for example, input reduction, in particular with regard to chemicals and chemical fertilizer. This is my take, right? Whereas there's other principles which are for one thing more complex and more difficult actually also to realize, but there is also more diversity because they do not translate automatically into a given agro ecosystem, also in a given agroecological zone and in a given economic setting, because there's a big variability or diversity also in that. So that is my take, right? But now still talking about the marketing actually, and also the production of agroecologically produced agricultural food when it is needed on the market. I would wish to go back to Prabhakar with the following question. I mean, still reflecting a bit that the organic food market is a bit limited, and where do you see now the challenges of the economy of scale actually, if the still kind of niche organic or natural products were to become mainstream? And why I'm saying that, I mean, we have been listening to the percentages earlier on today. So the idea, I mean, the very idea and also the very, I think, political orientation or goal, long-term goal is to go mainstream with these kind of sustainable production and food systems. And there is this nasty economy of scale question, which you cannot avoid, right? And so what are the fixes and the remedies and the strategies, I mean, to deal with it? Again, bearing in mind that we do not have, orderly certified organic producers throughout. So we have a lot of voluntary natural producers that one way or the other are identified as such to consumers and to the market. So economy of scale. Over to you.
Yeah, I think it's a reality that the market share of organic produce in the overall consumption basket is very, very minuscule at this juncture. And it will be a long way when a large part of consumption would shift to organic. As was mentioned by the earlier speakers, it's still considered as niche, and I would dare say even considered as super premium. And so one of the challenges, and that's again a chicken and egg story in a way, one way to reduce the cost of the finished good is to get the economies of scale. Now, if you have to get the economies of scale, which means we'll have to sort of get that equation of yields versus cost right. As was mentioned by Krishna Prasad, typically when you're going into an organic this thing, your costs shoot up, and that's where the challenge is. To me, it's more a journey when I look at it from a market perspective, where the consumer moves from one stage to the other. Now, the advantage when you do that, and I'm taking the example again of ITC, is you have a large base at the bottom, which is unbranded, unpackaged. It is relatively easier to move them to a branded and the packaged segment. And that's what we did when we sort of rolled out a wheat flour called Ashirvad Atta. Now, as we started growing that particular segment, it also started lending itself into economies of scale in terms of our volumes that we were procuring, our extent of connect with the farmers, and more importantly, the consistent connect with the farmers. Because now the farmer was seeing a regular access to a market, irrespective of what happens either on the push side or the pull side. But once you've got that base, then you start building on that base as to, so for example, if I'm working with a farmer on X number of acres and he's saying every year we have been engaged with them. Now, if I start looking at him to say, can you allot part of your farm holding to look at organic based cultivation? Obviously, with all the other, it has to be distance from the existing farms, etc. The farmer is more likely to be inclined. Likewise, as you build a much larger consumer franchise base, then you start knocking off layer by layer from top. Can I get my top 1% to switch to organic? Can I then move it to 5%? And that's what our journey has been. Now, when we are looking at the same example of Ashirvad, a year back, we have rolled out Ashirvad Organic. So that, to me, it's a hierarchy. And how do you move from one level to other after having created a very, very robust base, both in terms of volume and reliability?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. That brings me to the next question that goes to Krishna back again, and because now we're still dealing with the quality control of organically or naturally produced agricultural commodities. And yes, for organic farming, it would normally be certification, but of course, certification can be costly, also very complex, and also sometimes bureaucratic, etc. And yes, we do have group certification schemes that may be more kind of approachable for the smallholder, and yet it is still demanding, right? And the question would be, would participatory guarantee systems be more affordable to producers, for one thing? But at the same time, also, would they be accepted as a proof of quality by consumers? That goes to Krishna. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel, because we have an experience both the organic certification by the external agency and the PGS also. Look at that. I think the cost wise, if you consider the group certification by the external agency, the cost of establishing an ICS, farm inspections, whatever, and also the PGS more or similar. And second thing is, PGS, at least earlier when the PGS India Council was there was a genuinity. Because once the government pitched in and asked, you need minimum 1,000 farmers. This was also in the one stretch. It's impossible in India. It's like a continuous stretch to find 1,000 farmers is not. You ask any organic players, farmers are scattered, one there and here. If you want to identify a genuine organic farmer, for example, Sahaja Organics, it's all spread in Karnataka and also more in South India. Even sometimes we need to travel 150 kilometers to meet our farmers. So this is the thing. I think PGS is a wonderful model for the local consumption. I think more than a PGS. Let's take your consumers group. That is what I was talking about the farmers market. It's like 100 or 180, whatever the small number of consumers. They can visit the organic farms once in a year. I think once you save your money, and second thing is you build that trust. This is what I have seen. Many local consumers, they go to their local farmers, they buy, so we can minimize. Otherwise, it's like how earlier the PGS Council of India was doing. I think that kind of method, you work with the small farmers. That is possible. And also recognition. If we want to supply for a big buyers, or if you want to export, again, PGS is not recognized. I think PGS is a good system if you strengthen it properly. Don't behind the numbers. Now it's all a number game. Whether it's organic certification or PGS, I think this is all big number, and also we must bring some integrity and also transparency that is needed. But Sahaja, we strongly believe let's consumer and farmers partnership and the trust that is more important than any certification.
Thank you very much. And I mean, this is a very important keyword that I want to follow up upon. That is partnership. And now I'm shifting a bit from individual questions to all of you. So, and my first question actually relates to partnerships. And my question to all of you would be, which innovative partnerships and also alliances would you consider necessary to promote agroecological transition? And as you have your mic still on, please go on, Krishna, and position yourself if you so wish. Was I audible? Was I audible?
Yes,
Okay, good. Okay. So which innovative partnerships and alliances would you consider necessary to promote agroecological transition?
Yes, one is, I think we need scientist support to standardize the practices. Because we have seen farming is not only the occupation. You take any farming family, one or two people engage in the farming, others are something they go to the cities or they do some other activities. I think very few farmers are doing experiments. I think, for example, you ask them to use a neem oil. Even today, no one knows what is the percentage, what is the concentration. I think this is what we must standardize the practices. That is what we need scientific community support to standardize the practices and give it to the farmers. Because farmers are now adopting, yes, this Jivamruta works. We know that Jivamruta set up method. I think this is what farmers are following it in a big scale. There are few, yes, farmer innovations, farmers experiments, on-farm experiments are very useful. That is only with the small percentage. This is what the trend today. That is what farmers are looking ready solutions. I think this is what one is scientific communities, especially Krishi Vignana Kendras. They closely work with the farmers. And also our agriculture universities, their research must also look at that. If you come to I have not seen anything participatory crop improvement. Every year they are releasing the new varieties. Whether farmers need it or not, the new varieties are releasing. Look, there are wonderful existing traditional varieties. Just do the simple improvement. I think this is what farmer-scientist partnership one. And second thing is the government whenever I design the farming policies, each government change the policy. This is what, if you see the organic farming or natural farming policies, whenever the new government comes, it discard all the old ones and it puts something new concept. I think this is what, especially in the organic farming thing, this must be, at least it must continuous. It's just improve, not to drop the ideas. This is the second with the government. And third one is, again, I told consumers and farmers partnerships. I think we need to strengthen, because my 22 years experience in promotion of this organic farming, linking farmers and consumers. Yes, consumers are really, because we have seen the melas, we have seen the fairs, farmer consumers coming. No one was using the red rice in Bangalore. After our red rice mela, you go any organic outlet, each month they sell 300 to 400 kgs of red rice put together in tons. I think educating consumers is not difficult, but educate them properly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Farmers,
Ralph, if I were to,
We
if I were to
go,
sort of
yes, over to
if I were
you,
to
yes, please.
supplement what Mr. Prasad said.
Yes, please.
Our own experience also says that there are very, very clearly defined sets of partnerships if you want agroecology to actually work. One is clearly the knowledge partnerships, where Prasad referred to the agri-institutes and Krishi Vikas Kendras. Our own experience, again, for example, we've been working with CGIAR on Climate Smart. We've been working with IUCN on biodiversity, or International Water Management University on Institute on Water. So you need to also affiliate and partner with some of the large bodies wherein you get an outside-in perspective. There's also a big play within the knowledge partnership segment of organizations like CIZ, which can actually get all partners together and then sort of work and support advocacy and those type of activities. The second set of partnerships in our view has been very, very important is the implementation partnerships. When you want to do things at scale, it's not possible, say, for just ITC alone to do it. You require a network of what we call as implementation partners across the length and breadth of the country. The third, of course, is the whole public-private partnership, where it could be partnership with the governments or partnership with other like-minded institutions. The last very important partnership in our experience has been is the community institutions. As I referred to earlier, whether it's the farmer groups or women groups, or essentially whoever is ultimately going to benefit. Those user groups are very, very important, because then they take ownership of what has been propagated, etc., and then take the responsibility of sustaining it. So it's this fourth set of partnerships. When they work together as an ecosystem, I think many, many interventions will be successful, both in terms of speed and implementation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, that I have somewhat different take on this thing. First point is, no, we need within the scientific institutions, now it is all siloed. If you look at ICR, the agronomists, to what extent they interface with their fellow breeders. Within the system, there is not much of networking and interfacing. Say, for example, the microbiology, particularly soil biology, is in the entire university you may find 1 or 2 scientists. So it is impossible, given the current share of resources of the disciplines that are required for agroecology to be researched. For them to operate within this meager resources is impossible. And then both in knowledge terms and also in resource terms. So it is important that the coalitions of scientists come forward within the systems, within the ICR, within the agriculture universities. So how soil microbiologists across the country come together. Some shared platforms evolve for them to challenge each other, put new knowledge in all that, and all the and also these coalitions of interdisciplinary scientific communities. The communities of practice in natural farming, which actually bypasses the conventional disciplines and look at the ecosystems as a whole. I think that is one of the critical requirement of moving towards a paradigm of natural farming in the scientific world. The second point I would like to say is, say for example, I mean the question I have to you also, Ralph, what is whom we are considering as consumers? We are considering consumers as those people who buy from the buy packed things from the shops, retailers. Even the farmers are consumers. There are 50% of the households in the country are farmers. All of them are consuming, and many of them keep non-chemical produce for themselves. While they sell chemical produce to the market, several of them keep produce non-chemical food for themselves. So they are all consumers. They are expressing their choice there. And then the local economies. So there are multiple players there. That is a huge consumption base. I don't know the percentage of organized market sales in food. What it would be in the total consumption, I think my guess is it is minuscule. So the large part of the consumers, so if you take a local economy, how the local processors, how the local producers, how the local consumers, be they in the service sector or be the farmers, be the agricultural labor, and the local mandis, the shandis, people selling in those shandis, selling in the kirana shops. Now, how you build these coalitions? So how you and these coalitions are not organized partnerships. So the fundamental driver of a paradigm change is to what extent these various niches of coalitions come up on their own. For together all pushing the agenda towards natural farming. We need to find some way of building such movements, building such coalitions, local farmers, local producers, local agricultural laborers, solving their problems. So I think that will have many solutions, and I see many such things are happening now. So there are numerous small shops which are not branded, which are not labeling anything, and they're all named natural farming shops, something like that. And then they are tying up with farmers and then selling providing them an outlet in the cities. And they are not certified. Consumers are going there. They buy and trust. And I can see hundreds of such shops coming up in Hyderabad. So I think these are the phenomena, the mainstream phenomena, which I think we should understand more and then find levers of accelerating the processes. Organized partnerships for self-interest. If I'm an NGO, my self-interest is a project, then I have a coalition and a funder if I'm a businessman, I want an implementer. These are okay. Respective self-interest will drive it. But this will not drive a paradigm change. The paradigm change, the shift from the convention to this thing comes from the coalitions on ground, how they form naturally, how they get accelerated naturally.
Okay, so that's very exciting actually. And so what you now collectively, the three of you pointed out is, I think, quite informative also to the Swati program, because you have to make sure that you do understand the alliances and also the partnerships that are really crucial or essential to promote the good case of natural farming and agroecology. And I think that was a very important bit of this panel discussion, as I can see it. I'm looking a bit at the time. I think we do not have, I don't know whether I can get a hint of the organizers. I reckon we don't have more than 10 minutes. Is that true? Is there a way to chat the time, to post the time? So I do not want to bombard you with too many questions. And yes, please. How many?
So you can go on for another half an hour.
Oh, for even
it's possible.
Half an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The first question would be: do we have any questions in the chat? I don't see anything. Is that true?
That's true. There are no questions.
That's true.
There are no delegate questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there are no questions in the chat, so we don't need to be to respond to them or to keep an eye on them. Maybe some will pop up. So we had this separation of sessions, right? This is more, a kind of practitioners discussion, and previously we had a more politically minded discussion. But I think, honestly, I think you can't discuss the one without the other. And I'm so nasty to have borrowed some of the questions from earlier today and to present them to you, because I think that they're still kind of relevant, and they're not all of them. So I'm not repeating all the questions that have been discussed in the previous panel, but at least two. So according to your opinion, is there a need for formulating a comprehensive policy for agroecology, tying in all the elements as it was phrased in the morning? So if I got you well now, I mean, you positioned yourselves now. You said, well, it's basically the farmers and the consumers and the society, so to speak, that has to act, right? And it's not so much the policy. Also, in the discussion today, we heard here farmers sometimes have this expectation, the government should solve their problems on these things. But what is your take on this? I mean, is the current political setting enough, actually, as a kind of enabling political environment to further, to promote, to develop the good case of agroecological transformation and production? Or are delicate or even profound adaptations needed in terms of comprehensive policy on agroecology? Who wants to start? Okay, I see Prabhakar. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think like what was Ravindra was mentioning at a different micro level when he spoke of ICAR in terms of their different silos. If you're looking at an agroecology policy, there has to be one overarching policy wherein all the players are aligned to a common purpose. Unfortunately, the way we are set up across levels, micro to macro, including departments, etc., and state level, they are very, very segmented. And unless there is some integrative mechanism, it becomes a bit of a challenge for people in the field. So the need is definitely there. The second issue is many a times there is inconsistency in policies across states, and when you're wanting to drive something at a national level, that becomes a bit of a challenge. Third is, as was alluded sometime back in this session itself, is the back and forth of policies and therefore the unpredictability. So how do you evolve a roadmap where once we have set out on that particular road or path, there's no looking back.
Yeah, okay. So that is a very clear statement. I mean, there is actually a need to revise or readjust policies, even though what you're explaining is quite enormous. It's quite ambitious as well. We all know this, and particularly in federal states where we have political power being distributed at different levels. And but thank you very much. And
therefore, I think what Ralph becomes very important is what is your nature of consultative process, which is engagement with all stakeholders right at the early stage. There's an ideation stage, then there's a policy formulation stage, and there's a communication stage. I think the involvement with all stakeholders, and which is a massive consultative process, that probably is very, very important.
Yeah, I fully agree. And just before I hand over, I mean, agroecology doesn't work out if you're working in silos. It's simply, it doesn't work out because by default it's multi-layered, transdisciplinary, and it has this all these dimensions. And if you get stuck there, you won't actually promote the concept and live up to this kind of a really paradigm or overarching concept. And yes, so at least when you identify barriers, I mean, even political barriers, I mean, they should be addressed. Incentives, not each the removal of each barrier translates into an incentive, but so maybe there must be an additional effort also to incentivize, but at least barriers must be dealt with. But we certainly get more opinions from other panelists. Just come forward and
yeah. Shall I go, Dr. Ralph?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. See, I think the problem is, do we know how to make policies for knowledge-based transitions? This is the critical question. It's not about policy making, but what should be the role of government and governance in such transitions? See, the problem that we face consistently, we propose something and then we push it to the policy making. The moment the policy comes in, it becomes very tight, and then it becomes disabling. Like Krishna Prasad said about the PGS. So PGS, when it went into policy, then the policies became a hurdle rather than enabling. See, all the years since independence, our policy making is basically input driven. Is basically what you call the embedded technologies, not what you say. The technology goes with an artifact, either it is seed or a machine or a fertilizer. No, we hardly know how to make policies where input are not involved. So there's hardly any examples, and then that all that effort is seen as human resource cost. So there it has to be 10% of the total. And while in policy making, I'm saying, well, they're budgeted. So policy making in the for a new paradigm in the existing framework will be disastrous. You need to have a new frame for policy making. So that new frame is first to be debated. First to be, because the entire norms of government functioning, say for example budgeting. So you look at any program, even SRI, when it went into the, I mean, we made a huge amount of effort to get it into the policy. The moment it's included in an NFSM program, then the entire budget is about 5 heads, which is how much subsidy you give for weeder, how much subsidy you give for fertilizers and pesticides, even millets. In promoting millets, herbicides are subsidized. So there is a precedence and there is a culture of policy making which determine the rules and then the mindsets of policy making and budgeting. If you actually put the new requirements into that system, it will be counterproductive. So essentially you need to see how a different way of looking at policies. What is the role of government in the whole transitions? Whether is it regulatory, is it enabling? All these things need to be worked out. And second, the issue is not so much of policy but investments. Since natural farming has been talked about in the country for 4-5 years since it's talked about, minuscule of investments went into it. All the announcements were not backed by investment. So even 10% of fertilizer subsidy, even if you put in natural farming, this thing that increases the fertilizer use efficiency. As simple as that. But there were the pronouncements were never backed up by this. So where from the investment comes, and where do you invest, are the two critical questions in policy making.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, so well, it's of course we all know it's complicated, and I think it was mentioned today in the opening speak of Mohammed when he was referring a bit to, to the European agricultural, the common policy, agricultural policy, we know how difficult it is actually to kind of redesign and redirect also the subsidy system, and that is something that shows very little progress over a very long time, and certainly not an enabling framework. In the judgment of many people, for agroecological transition, for example, in Europe. But we're also curious to hear the opinion of Krishna on the policy framework. Mm-hmm.
As Ravindra rightly said, in India, I think you will find many policies. You see the organic farming policy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of all the states came up with the organic farming policies, but the investment is very less. Mm-hmm. And also this is what not farming policies is important, that implementation is very much important. And the sad part is each government, for example, one government, ruling government forms some policies, next government think this policy is not fair. They will plan something else. I think this is what keep aside. Okay, don't mix up the politics with the agroecology, organic farming, whatever. They should not mix it up. At least that way, Karnataka was the state more than 15 years, no government was touching it. But later all it's mixed it up. I think this is what, because it's the farming sector policies, we should not mix up with the politics. That is needed, and investment and implementations are very much necessary. Otherwise, if you form the policies, no use.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Yes, please come forward. Yeah.
Obviously, formulating the participatory, they never approach the farmers. Even we have seen many farming related policies, they never ask the farmers' opinion. So only the think tank will sit, but the policy makers, they will, whatever they choose at Delhi level, they will formulate something. Yeah, it should not happen. It's from the bottom to top.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And okay, that could obviously turn into an endless discussion, and particularly the question how subsidies could be kind of redesigned to incentivize agroecological transition in India and elsewhere in the world. So very, very difficult. So my take is, and with this I want to kind of conclude this meeting, so that we got a very, very valuable insight from your side, actually, on the practicalities of this so-called agroecological transition, and also the tendency to actually to accommodate, the variety of sustainable approaches in India under this umbrella of agroecology as a kind of overarching idea that kind of unites, if you like, the sustainable, natural or naturally minded farming approaches in India. And we are very, very hopeful, actually, and I got a lot of confidence from today's discussions that agroecology is not just a buzzword. In India, it's really something that is developing pace and momentum. And I do see the change from within months, I must say, from last year definitely to this year, and that kind of makes me very optimistic. And I'm also very sure that there's a lot of takeaways from this session and also the previous session for the Swati program. I'm not so sure about the audience, which I can't actually see. So I don't know who is attending, how many people are attending. Are we just talking to each other, or is there something like an audience hidden behind these funny console 2, console 3? I don't know, but never mind. I mean, the insights are there, the takeaways are there. And I think that is positive, and that is something to take home. But before we close this session, I won't let you run away without completing a sentence that I offer to you, all of you. It's very simple. So my question would be to all of you, and we start with you, Krishna. 10 years from now, agroecological transition in India will, and please complete that sentence. I repeat it once for you. 10 years from now, agroecological transition in India will. Over to you.
You can hear the birds noise.
I love it. I love it. Yes.
It will be like that. It's more bountiful, I think, farmer friendly, and it reduces the farmer suicide.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Thank you very much. And over to Ravindra. 10 years from now,
Will be
agroecological
mainstream.
transition in India will
Be mainstream.
Full
It will be in the mainstream.
full stop.
Full stop. Yes.
Thank you very much.
And of
And
course,
over
that's
to-
our mission.
No, that's clear. Very, very clear. And over to Prabhakar.
10 years now, agroecology
In India
will be a session by GIZ where we will not be talking of why it is needed, but how it has made a difference to the entire ecosystem of the country, and how do we build on it.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's a very good input into the vision statement, of the Swati program, and probably not only then, maybe also the coalition and others. So, yeah. So I think now we come to an end. I'm very grateful both to the organizers and to the panelists in particular that you participated in this session. I honestly feel very honored because. I'm an outsider. I'm not even working in India, and I'm claiming authority, or at least raising my voice, to come forward with opinions, and that is a bit scary to some extent. But thank you very much that you allowed me to actually to lead this discussion, and also to come forward with some theses and ideas and information and opinions from my side. So I think it was very valuable and very enriching. Thank you so much, and all the best to you, and all the best to the good case of agroecology and anything that comes with it. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Ravindra. Thank you, Prasad.
You're
Thank you to the
welcome.
entire
Thank you.
team.
Yeah.
So bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.